Native Land Pod is a production of iHeart Radio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome
home, everybody. This is Tiffany Cross, Angela Wright.
You don't want to start with yourself?
And I'm Andrew Gillum. And you're tuned into this week's MiniPod, which we have decided off the fly to make this week's quick MiniPod some answers to the questions that y'all posed that we didn't get to in the show. So forgive us, but also direct your friends over here to see your debut on Native Land Pod. So, how y'all doing?
Great. What is Andrew laughing at?
How y'all doing?
Because Andrew said,
how you doing?
We have decided
on the fly.
On the fly. We have decided on the fly. So then that means that it's not on the fly, weirdo.
It is on the fly. We just decided on the fly just a couple of minutes ago to do this.
That tickled me, as my grandma say.
More importantly, y'all doing all right? Everybody,
yes.
Everyone's is good. Can we get to the first question, please?
Yeah, let's see what our viewers talking about.
Welcome home, y'all. I'm April McFadden from Chicago by the way of Atlanta.
All right.
And two things. DNC coverage, loved it. Second thing, Angela, listen to last week's episode. Andrew outcooled you. I didn't think the day would happen, but you should let him have the if you feeling froggy jump moment all to himself because it was great and you had to bring the flower into it. We love you though anyway. But my question that I want y'all to chew on. There's a lot of talk about Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, energizing the base. But is it her energizing the base or is the base energizing her?
What's her name again?
Put differently.
What was her name? Do we remember?
Her name was... Okay,
April. Miss Lady Girl.
So April, what is you talking about? I don't even know if she's talking about froggy jump.
Because I said last week, she said, when I said, if you feeling froggy jump, what you thought it was Tiffany. No, I didn't say leap. I said, if you feeling froggy jump. No, I'm telling you, it's supposed
to be leap.
Well, that may be true. However, I said, if you feeling froggy jump. And so you then pulled over your potted plant, the lily that
pads.
ain't a lily pad. And
they look like lily pads.
And she was like, you should have let Andrew have that cool moment. He don't have no cool moments ever.
I'm glad you clarified it.
But is it cool if you said the quote wrong?
Well, it's my quote.
It was to her, so maybe it was cool. But I thought she was talking about something else.
I'm glad
confused. That you explained.
And then she said I brought the flower into
April.
it.
Yeah, she was like,
April.
She said, let him have it. Let him have that cool moment.
Fair enough, April. We will let Andrew have his cool moment.
Cool.
And I received it, April, that I'm not cool. I appreciate it.
He does not need to be
let.
let.
No, she's saying you cool. But I love her question about is she energized? I think it's both. That's my answer.
Does it make a difference?
No, it doesn't make a difference, but I like it as a question and a topic to discuss.
No, I mean, I do wonder, seriously, does it make a difference if she's giving us energy or if we're the ones giving her energy?
I would say it does only because after the campaign, she has to govern. And if you need like people around you cheering all the time for you to lead with the courage of your convictions and go out there and deliver for the people, you don't always have that as president. Approval ratings go up and down. So I would say she is energizing the people, but she's being fed a lot of energy. Yeah. It's like if our energy is different when we're in front of a live audience, and people are, responding and talking to us. Then we have more energy. Energy is contagious. Our energy when we're together is different versus being on a Zoom. So, yeah, I think it makes a difference. And I think the people are feeding her energy. And I think she is feeding back energy to us. I think it's both. And I like it.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just both. I think there's like a, where's that from? Lion King somewhere, Circle of Life. Like there's a whole... Lion King. Yeah, there's a whole like ecosystem that is happening. And I think, people were excited to see a shift on the Democratic ticket. I think that it energized the party. I think that it energized some young folks who were like, okay, maybe there's an opportunity to have a conversation with someone who's not as stuck in their ways. I think Kamala Harris has demonstrated that she listens even to opposing views. And I think that you can see a complete shift in her demeanor.
Yeah.
And that is coming from the love that she gets. Like, when she was on the stage of her speech that Thursday night at the DNC, I wonder how many times Kamala said thank you. And I think it was genuine gratitude because when she was, VP, or she still is VP, but as the VP, she was in such obscurity, whether, I'm not saying that she wasn't working hard, but she wasn't getting the coverage and the attention that the work she was doing, the boldness of the work she was doing really deserves. So now to kind of be seen, I think it does do something to her and for her. And I think that she's now reciprocating that same energy. So basically, I agree with Tiff.
I think she's electrified by the audience, but I've also been in spaces where there's been great anticipation for someone and the people then get let down. Like it's almost as if
That's fair.
You can't reach the level at which folks have put you. And so it was just, which is why I'm glad that the way this thing started was her impressing everyone, because we were so refreshed to hear her voice, see her disposition, see the snap, the snapback, the what she was like, as the saying goes, if you got something to say it to my face. That didn't come out of nowhere, right? She played on all the things that felt very familiar to her. And I think, like you both said, she was in her body. She was fully encompassing Kamala Harris, or whatever they call her when, everybody ain't in listening ear, right? Whatever that name is, she was fully embodying that. And I would just say the beauty is that it can work both ways. The fact that she met us above our expectations, performed at a level, certainly given the circumstances, the unforeseen circumstances of it all, that you would have thought she had been preparing and, teed up on this a long time ago. And in fact, I think the Kamala Harris that we are seeing now was different than the one that we saw when she was running for president. I feel like she is
really
fully, in the sense that
I agree.
I was not as compelled by her then. I didn't think that her positions on issues were as solid as they are, I think, as they are now.
She learned some things.
Yeah, she learned some things, for sure. And that's what I mean about flip-flopping, this whole thing that people can't evolve. If you aren't every single day learning something new, adding to the repertoire, maybe even contradicting some things you knew before, then what are you doing? Are you really living? Are you really experiencing? Are you open to whatever the universe is putting, your way? And I'm not blaming anybody for an evolution, so long as it's hard come by. Like you've done some thinking and some doing here. So anyway, I don't know that it makes a total difference, but I do think there is something different in the fact that we thought of her at some level, and she came out in the stratosphere and has really, bodied this race up to this point. And I think she'll do it, beyond. So thank you for the question.
Can I ask you guys one other question on this question? How much of that energizing do you think is coming from this inherent desire to protect Kamala Harris? Like, we think about what we've had to do to ensure they know her name, to ensure they understand just how qualified she is. I wonder if some of what is feeling energizing is this innate desire and need. We know it secondhand, to protect not only what is ours. Like, remember when Congresswoman Fudge got on the podcast at the DNC, when Lenard asked her what was the difference between Hillary Clinton running and Kamala Harris running for her. And she said, she is mine.
She's mine.
And it was like, when she said that, I had goosebumps. I was like, oh my God. There was something that was very resonant. Mm-hmm.
I think that we are part of the largest sorority of the globe as Black women. Mm-hmm. It is a magical space, a magical thing to be a part of. We don't hold hands. We chain a soul. We don't have the privilege to even dislike each other. There are people who I don't, amongst us in family talk, it's like, I don't really rock with her. I don't like her, But when we get out here in the world, and somebody's attacking her, I have to stand with my sister. I'm not going to turn you over to them, because I know the cruelty of them too well. So I think as Black women, we are a coalition, and Black women are the base, the strongest, most enthusiastic part of the base of the Democratic Party. And even outside the party, just a base of voters who stand on the side of goodness and righteousness and does what's right. So yeah, I think it's a part of protecting her, but also investing in ourselves and our future. And trusting, if I got to choose between her and this unhinged ass white man, I'm going with somebody who looks like me every time.
And I know I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tiff.
Just really quickly, there was a father. I may have told this on the podcast before. There was a father who was letting his young Black daughter fly by herself for the first time, and he told her, if you get into any trouble, if you get lost, if you have any problems, find the closest sister you can and tell her you're lost and you need help. That says so much, because if I had to unleash my child in the world, I would offer her the same thing. Find any Black woman and tell her you need help, because I don't have to know you, but I know you. You are me and I am you. So I think there is some of that with Kamala Harris. We got less than 10 minutes. I don't want to take up too much time because we got another question.
Next question, but I will say that I think respecting the bond of obviously amongst Black women and women of color is all real, is that Black men, and I think other communities also feel this ownership and protection piece, because once someone sets their aspirations at this level, whatever level it is, you have the courage to put yourself out there. It's like, nah, you can't let every Tom, Dick, Harry run along, Trump, run along and strike that person down, because you're now going at the best of us. You're now going at what's what I feel is part representation of me. So I think a lot of us got our back for sure. What's that next question?
Hi, Native Land Pod family. How are you? This is Jennifer. I live just outside of Washington, D.C., in a suburb of D.C. in Northern Virginia. I'm sure you're familiar with that area. And my question revolves around how can we motivate, mobilize, incentivize Black Americans who live in upper middle class communities to participate in holding elected officials accountable in between election cycles. So I live in a community in which a lot of Black people seem to me to be very comfortable. They don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want to upset the status quo. They don't want to upset and jeopardize their own comfort. And so it seems as though Black people are taking and tolerating a lot of behavior by elected officials instead of holding these officials accountable. Do you guys think that there is something that we can do as a group, as Black people, in order to motivate and incentivize these people, or are these the people that Harriet just would have left behind? Thanks so much for taking the time to answer my question. And Tiffany, it was great meeting you the other week. Thank you so much for being so gracious with your time and generous with your spirit. Take care. I love you guys. Bye.
I love that. Teaching is an act of what?
I saw her and I'm like, I know her. Like, where do I know her from? Can I tell you guys, I met her. Mychael Harriet was in town and he was doing a book talk for Black AF History. Amazing book. Please read it. He was doing a book talk at Sankofa. And they gave me a shout out from the stage, and she came up to me and was saying how much she loves NLP. She said she listens going in the car in the morning with her kids. I told y'all about her. That was the woman who I met. She was so sweet. She loves y'all. Like, she loves the whole podcast. I'm like, where do I know her from?
I love her.
So anyway, I'm so happy. I literally was showing her how to send a question. I'm like, oh, you can send it on Instagram, and she did it. So thank you so much for sending the question.
Good job, Tiff.
Right. Who want to take that question?
I love this question so much, in part because it's something that I've wrestled with for a long time, still wrestle with it in a book that I'm going to write and publish at some point. But I think that Black folks have had to be very strategic and calculating. And in some instances, to our own detriment. There are a number of elected officials on the local, state, and federal level who have decided that incremental progress is better than no progress at all. And I understand it, but it is immensely frustrating to be talking about incrementalism 450 plus years after our arrival here. We know the first documented arrival, but I'm just saying 450 plus years after arrivals, period. So when we're talking about a people who built this, of people who are challenged on ownership, of people who, when we have created areas that were our own just to be out of your way and to not coexist, and you burn that down to the ground. It is very frustrating to deal with folks who are like, okay, well, I've arrived. The rest of y'all haven't arrived, but y'all will figure it out. Like, we should at the very least have a united front so that incremental progress is never bold, it is never radical, and it never really results in our true liberation. It is something that we have to, I think, probably wrestle with in a maybe not a public forum, but in a large forum where we address the needs of a Black agenda. I will give a shout out here to Black Futures Lab that developed the Black Census and did one in 2022 and has used that census to formulate a Black economic agenda. But that Black economic agenda does not necessarily coincide with what is the name of that organization? Black Economic Alliance. And BEA does not talk to necessarily Black to the Future Action Fund to ensure that our collective and widespread and disparate interests are all coming together. We need those spaces. We got to work together to see our collective advancement. Like, if we're honest,
levels to these things. When you named those two groups, I kept thinking when I was a candidate having to go and try and recruit dollars and the very different interest. I mean, we're talking about the poobahs versus the the proletariat. No, not to be disparaging to any particular group. I would just say, Angela and Tiff, in my experience, I have come across cushy or comfortable Black folks in my own community and around the state when campaigning who have, frankly, they've earned their spot wherever that spot may be for them. But in many ways, that spot always feels tenuous. That spot always feels like it could be taken from us. It could be, whether it's something I said or I didn't pay homage to the right person or whatever that is. And so folks haven't lost, I guess, the revolutionary in them. They still have a dream. They still have an aspiration. They still know what it feels like to be kicked, and they know when they're being kicked, even if they don't give voice to it. But their perch doesn't allow them the flexibility to be to act it out in the way that we might think. I was always shocked that so many of the white folks who wrote me checks to run for office and that kind of thing never hesitated to come by the office, visit, state what their issue was, whether it was zoning or their support for something or another. And oftentimes, our community didn't want to put upon me. It was good enough for me to show up, be able to get my words out. And if there was a thing I was passionate about, to see that thing crossed over the 3-2 finish line and we win victory. That it was like, we know that it's hard enough just getting up every day and doing this thing. And so we don't want to add to it. And I would just encourage us. I appreciate that. And I'm sure the elected officials in your community appreciate not being put upon. But in truth, that's what we're there for.
Exactly.
If you can't hold us accountable, encourage and applaud us, but also admonish us when it is necessary, then what is this all for? Then we're not moving our agenda. And as good of an elected official may be, and as on point around the issues you care about they may be, know that there is another interest out there who's pulling them in a different direction. So it matters that your voice is in the room. It matters that you say what you believe deserves being addressed, and that you be dogmatic about it. You don't have to be disrespectful, but you can absolutely ride that horse, through the finish line. So I don't think it's a lack of interest in wanting to hold people accountable, or lack of interest, or even an absence of desire, but rather that the world has whipped us into a place, and the reality of the world has whipped us into a place where we do hedge when it comes to our positionality, because our movement from that place impacts our household, my children, my children's future, my family, my, you put in, fill in the blank line. But I don't think there's anything sinister there. It's probably just the need for frankly updating our outlook on what accountability looks like for each other.
All right. I love it. Well, I think that
it.
concludes our mini pod, guys.
Did.
Yes.
We did.
Good job, y'all.
Welcome home, everybody.
Welcome
Yeah.
home, y'all.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeart Radio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeart Radio, visit the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.